Scooby Doo Who's Watching Who for the PSP is a third-person platformer released in the EU 601 days after the 2005 revival of the cult BBC sci-fi series Doctor Who. It was developed by Savage Entertainment, the same studio that made simulators for DARPA and then the cancelled Jurassic Park survival game. I loved this game as a kid, and if you click this video then I imagine you did too. But does it hold up? I bloody wish. Gameplay can be broken down into 5 segments: platforming, driving, the chase segment, clue analysis, and the trap segment. Platforming is what you'd expect. You jump around collecting clues and avoiding hazards. It's alright! There's nothing particularly special about it, and I'd argue if you're looking for a good 3D platformer on the PSP, then I seem to remember Tomb Raider Anniversary doing a commendable job for a PSP game. The driving segments range from good to annoying. The first level's driving segment is just hella fun. Something about the arcade-like drifting of the Mystery Machine makes for an enjoyable time, and the variations of the driving segments is something that it didn't have to do, but is nice to have. This company of course created 2 driving levels in 007 Nightfire, which were also quite fun in my opinion. The chase segments are a thorn in my side. They're all the towards the camera sort of running style, which is a type of level that has a special place in video game design hell, alongside underwater levels and E.T. for the Atari. Every time I come across one, I was filled with dread. In the shows, the chase would be accompanied by an absolute banger of a song, but in this game it's just repetitive rubbish that I wish was a bit more creative. Clue analysis comprises a series of tedious minigames, which gets more difficult as it goes on. Overall, they're just uninspired and boring. Once you accuse a suspect of being the masked menace, you are told if you are right or wrong and move on to the trap segment, which is just a case of running to a marker and pressing triangle at the correct time. Again, not very inspired. The accusation part could be fun if it wasn't the fact that eventually you realise who's done it by how many automatic clues are next to their name. Alas, Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishment, this is not. Overall, there are some parts in the gameplay that are fun, but it's ruined by parts that are not fun. It's like biting into a cookie and finding it has raisins in instead of chocolate chip. It's just disappointing and doesn't hold up. The story is almost non-existent. Hints of a story crop up from time to time, but disappear just as quickly. It all leads to the last level, which is meant to tie up the story. But it just doesn't feel satisfying because they forget to make you care. It doesn't hold up, but I would argue it never did in the first place. The music isn't great either, but it is catchy. I found myself singing along to it on more than one occasion, and it does its job at blending into the background well, but Scooby Doo has so many iconic songs that they could have pulled from, and it always feels like a misstep to not use any of them. They don't even have a proper theme tune during the credits, I checked. Overall, disappointing, but not necessarily bad. Although it doesn't hold up, it doesn't mean that I think it deserves a negative grade. The sound design overall is just uninspired as well. It doesn't have the cartoonish charm you would expect from a Scooby Doo game, but also doesn't have anything that gives it any pizzazz. Again, it's not a negative, but it doesn't hold up as well as it could have. Luckily, to counteract the sound design, the art design is fantastic, just brilliant. The colour palette feels like it's straight from a cartoon, the slight outlines give it a cartoonish feel, and other than a few blurry textures, the graphics hold up really well. The clues are creepy since it's a cartoonish magnifying glass with a weirdly realistic eye in the middle, but other than that, it mainly holds up. This ties in well with atmosphere. The atmosphere is so thick you could cut it with the gay blade of a ghost set. Scooby Doo reference for you there, you see. From the little details like Mystery Inc. and GSI roaming around the levels adding to the immersion, to the fantastic environment design, they really did an outstanding job at making the atmosphere feel like a 1960s Scooby Doo episode. It holds up incredibly. Now, acting. On this part, I'm going to have to preface it by saying every actor is fantastic. Frank Welker reprises his role as Fred Jones, a role he's excelled in since 1969. Grey Delisle Griffin joins the cast as Daphne, the same person from What's New Scooby Doo, Scooby Doo and Cyberchase, Mystery Incorporated, and many more. Mindy Cohn is Velma, just like What's New Scooby Doo, a role she'll hold until 2015. And Scott Imes plays Scooby Doo and Shaggy Rogers, doing the best Casey Kasem impression I've ever heard. So, when I say the voice acting doesn't hold up today, please keep in mind that I am not referring to the cast's performances themselves, for they did a stellar job. What really let the cast down is the direction. You can have the greatest cast in the world, but without a good director it all just falls apart. That's what happened here. The direction let it down, and as such, it doesn't hold up. The controls are really nothing special. They don't feel good, they don't feel bad, they're just functional and okay. Overall, they hold up, and it's a PSP game. It's cheap to buy and easy to emulate once you learn how to get it off the disc. So overall, I'd say the game doesn't hold up if you want that nostalgia hit. However, if you've got a kid that likes Scooby Doo, then I reckon you should go for it. It'll provide a few hours of entertainment, and in 17 years' time, they'll look back on it fondly, whilst also realising that it isn't exactly great.